So the mayor had asked us to do a condensed presentation this evening on our budget that we presented back to the Board of School Committee in February. What we are going to move forward and through will be the opening slides, but I want to take a quick moment and just recognize what we saw here this evening and the information that's contained in our opening slides. Our district, over the past few years, has absolutely been on the move and going in the right direction, from our graduation rates going up, to our student attendance going up, to behavior going down. We are cutting new pathways for students to succeed in college and career, and we are pushing the limits to make sure we are stretching to meet the needs of our students. So while we're going to go quickly through these slides of accomplishments to get to the budget, I just would be remiss if I didn't call out all of the students, all of the staff, everyone you saw here today that are representative of that progress. Which one do you want to step on?
Good evening. So I'm looking at the tax cap calculation. If you look at the 4.2%, that is the 4.27%. That is the number that was given to us by Sharon Wickens that you all are familiar with for the tax cap budget. If you take that 4.27% and apply it to our current year's tax revenue of $120.4 million, that would bring in an additional $5.1 million in tax revenue to the school district. In addition to that, we have additional revenues of $6.4 million that we'll discuss on one of the next slides. So in total, looking at the 5.1 in additional tax revenue and $6.4 million in additional non-tax revenue, that would bring our budget up by $11,550,000, which brings our request to $246,050,206. Next slide. Looking at that $11.5 million on both the increase in revenues, which is on the left side of the screen, and then the increase in the spending on the right side of the screen, we're just going to highlight some of the different areas on both sides. So looking at our adequacy aid, our enrollment has leveled. We are looking at an additional increase in adequacy aid of $11.7 million. Again, enrollment has leveled, but we are seeing a 2% increase in the base and the differentiated aid, and that's based on the current formula at the state level. Our interest income, our treasurer has estimated a reduction due to the estimated interest rates, so we're looking at a reduction of $250,000 on our interest income. Our Medicaid revenue, due to the reduction or due to the change in the rules, we're looking at a reduction of $250,000. And all of our other revenues, we're looking at we're recommending a 50% decrease in the use of one-time funds from our expendable trust. So in fiscal year 25, the year we're in now, we're utilizing $9 million between our surplus from the prior year and our expendable trusts. So again, $9 million in one-time funds, and our recommendation is to reduce that to $4.5 million, as we would like to get off of that one-time fund usage. All of our other revenues, we're seeing a decrease of $262,000. So if you look at those first couple of items I just spoke about, that again is the $6.4 million increase in other revenues, the large portion of that being driven by the adequacy aid increase. And then the bottom portion of the screen is, again, what I mentioned on the other slide, the 4.27% on the tax revenues brings in an additional $5.1 million to the school district. Looking on the expenditure side, our increase in spending is that same $11.5 million. Our salaries include all of our cost of living adjustments, our steps, and our longevities. We also have included in here our teacher retirements, so filling all those positions, filling our vacant positions. We do have a new category in our salaries this year, a couple of new categories actually. Our bus drivers are now part of the school district, so that's no longer under the contracted services. And then also we have a new category of paraprofessionals, which are the registered behavior technicians, RBTs. And we no longer are funding them under our professional services line, which is why we see the professional and technical services line being reduced, but our salaries being increased by those amounts. So if we were to take out those new categories in our salary line, right now we're seeing a $10.7 million increase in our salaries. That looks high, but that's because of those new categories that are now in that line item. If we were to take out those categories, we would be looking at a salary increase of 4.5%, which is consistent with our steps and our COLAs with our collective bargaining agreements. Looking at our benefits, our health insurance, we've increased by 7%, which increases the budget by $1.7 million. When we built the budget, our benefits consultant did recommend using 9%. However, we decided to go with the 7%. Since the time that we built the budget back in February, our consultant is seeing an increase in the trending of health insurance, and he is now recommending that we should be seeing a 10.3% increase next year. So just want to caution that, as we talk about this reduction, on the school side, we're looking at other things that we are going to be considering next year. Right now, the health insurance might be underfunded at this point in our budget. Our retirement rates have decreased by the New Hampshire State Retirement System, so that was some good news. However, we are seeing an increase in that line because obviously our salaries are going up. The same thing with our FICA. The FICA. Professional and technical services, as I mentioned before, we're seeing a reduction there of $2 million, and that's because we are now putting some of those costs up in our salary line. We would prefer to have the people in as employees versus contracted services, and it does actually cost us less money, even with our benefit packages, to get those people on board. Our transportation, we're seeing a decrease here of $3.7 million. Again, we've transitioned our transportation in-house for our regular transportation out of the MTA, Manchester Transit Authority, and we've brought that in-house. So in past years, you would have seen that transportation line at $3.7 million. We've now reduced that line item and brought that up into the salaries and benefits, the fuel, the insurance, and all the other related costs associated with the transportation. Our utilities, based on estimates from the Department of Public Works, we expect to see a decrease in natural gas and also electricity. However, that line item is increasing because we are now putting the bus fuel in there. The bus fuel is $500,000, but again, with some reductions in electricity and gas, we're seeing an increase in that line item of $400,000. Our city services, a 3% increase for our Aramark contract for our custodians, as well as the new square footage for our modular classrooms. Also a 3% increase for facilities and parks and recreation for the city services that they provide, and a 5% increase for the police school resource officers. So a total increase on that line of $320,000. And then finally, our debt service. We're showing an increase in the current debt that's bonded of $328,000. Fiscal year 25 and 26 CIP will not have an impact on the 26 budget. And then the $17.7 million is included for phase one in our line items as well. So the total spending would be an increase of $11.5 million. Next slide, please. This is just I spoke about the revenues, but this is all of the individual line items within our revenue budget, and it's just comparing fiscal year 25 to the fiscal year 26 budget projections. On the right-hand side, if you look at the subtotals, the $761,000 in the right-hand column, the first subtotal, the $4.5 million for the reduction in the use of one-time funds, and then the $11.6 million, the increase in adequacy. Those three numbers add up to that same $6.4 million that we looked at previously. That's an increase in our non-tax revenue, and then the 5.1 increase in our tax revenue. Next slide, please. This slide just shows a comparison of our adequate education aid over the past 5 years. The current formula, as I mentioned, is we are seeing a 2% increase in the base adequacy and the differentiated aid. The extraordinary needs grant is where we've seen a pretty large increase over the years when they changed the formula a couple of years ago, when we requested the additional $35 million that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen did give to us. So that's where that increase basically was in that extraordinary needs grant. That is also, current formula is a 2% increase. However, if our property taxes increase above 2%, we might not see that, that full increase. Next slide. Again, this is our expenditure side, just comparing the fiscal year 25 budget to the fiscal year 26 budget. These are the same line items that I spoke about on a previous slide. Again, the $11.5 million in additional spending. Looking at the next slide, this is an expenditure snapshot of all of our funds in the district. If we were to look at the Board of School Committee request in our general fund of $246 million, plus our school food and nutrition fund of $6.3 million, and our special revenue funds, which consist of all of our grants, our Title I, IDEA, all of the grants that we have in the district, we would be a total organization of $275.6 million. Looking at the next slide, this is that same $275 million on the revenue side, a pie chart just showing the different areas where we bring in revenue. State and local taxes represent $125.5 million, which is 45.6% of our budget. And then on the right-hand side, our adequate education aid is $108 million, which is 39.3%. I would also point out that our expendables trust utilizing $4.5 million represents 1.6%. This year, we utilized $9 million. That would roughly work out to 3.2%. So again, we're trying to bring down that usage of one-time funds. The next slide looks at the same $275 million on the spending side. Salaries and benefits represent 68.9% of our spending. Our debt service, which includes phase 1 of our long-term facilities plan, is 10.7% of our spending. And then transportation is $4.6 million towards the bottom of the page, or 4.6% on the bottom of the page, which is $12.5 million. Now that only includes, I wanted to point out, our vendors. So that would be our specialized transportation, because now our regular transportation that we took over from the MTA is included in the other salaries in the other areas on that pie chart, including salaries and benefits. The next slide is the recommendation for the fiscal year 26 CIP projects, a total request of $6.6 million in the different areas that are listed above, and for future bonding, estimated cost would be $768,500.
So I'm going to turn back to these were the items that we brought forward through the Board of School Committee. They were approved. We forwarded them on to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I think we're going to shift now to what we discussed last night in our Board of School Committee meeting. We understood that we had a discrepancy between the Board of School Committee tax cap compliant budget that we forwarded over to the BMA and the mayor's budget. The team and I went again line by line through our budget, and I am not using that language lightly. We went through every single line item in our budget to look for efficiencies and look for opportunities for reductions. I want to preface anything I'm going to say next with, I don't think any of the reductions that are on this recommendation list are in the best interest of our district, in the best interest of our students or our staff. With that said, the final recommendations that we came forward with last night include a reduction to our athletics programming of $90,090. That is a halt to the expansion of our middle school athletics programming. That halt would include baseball, middle school baseball, softball, wrestling, and unified athletics. We recommended a reduction in force. We've been able to determine we have 38 positions through attrition that we could hold. That does impact class sizes, particularly at our elementary schools. In addition, we're looking at a reduction at the district office of 8 positions, or 7.8% of the district staff team. We did look at the reduction to transportation, looking to increase to the legally required 2-mile walkout for students, a charge for high school riders, and a reduction in the use of the tap-on, tap-off system. That system allows families to be able to see.
Can we get a list? Something like that? I didn't see that in the package.
Well, we didn't know all this was coming forward today. We got that information last night in our board meeting.
So it's available on the website. They posted it last night, but we can share it.
Thank you.
Can I continue?
Yeah.
Reduction of the use of the tap-on, tap-off system. That essentially lets families take a look at where student buses are within the city to know when buses would be arriving. We're looking at a reduction in facilities. We have asked to open one of our contracts to look at a reduction in the scope or the level of staffing needed to clean our buildings to keep them at the APA level we have been specifying. We also outlined a decrease in supplies of $133,000. This would be proportionally distributed across all of our 20 schools. So they would see a reduction, not to include paper and toner, for the balance of the school year and all of next year. We looked at a contract service line reduction. Karen spoke about our ability to bring RBTs and paras into the district. We've been able to do that successfully and staff at a higher rate. At this point in time, we are looking at a 1-for-1, so anytime we bring a general funded staff person in, we'd be reducing a contract service with a total expected estimate of about $1.3 million for next year. And then again, using additional one-time funds in just over $3.8 million to round out to get us to the 9.55, 281. We can take questions.
Okay. So at this time, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Yep, Alderman Sapienza.
That's your list that you created?
That's our list, correct. Our team did that.
And the mayor's proposed $9.5 million.
Microphone.
Mayor's proposed $9.5 million. Does he have a list of his reductions?
Do I have a specific list? No, I mean, I've been in constant communication with the district on what they would propose. What I've said from the beginning is that the budget process is an iterative process. There are multiple steps to it. As you well know, having served on the board, I introduce my budget, then it goes to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and then we work together to find common ground and come forward with it. But so I've been working and staying in touch with them about what they would propose, and then we come up with a final number, and then we make the ultimate decision. Like, we send them the number, and then they make the ultimate decision on what the cuts would be.
So when you came up with the $9.5 million, that wasn't based on a list of things that you thought could come out of the budget?
Well, I mean, I recognize that changes would have to be made as a result of that. Knowing it's an iterative process, that it takes time to put that together, I knew that we would come back here, have these conversations, build something together that works for the city, the taxpayer, the school district, and all of us.
So will you be putting together a list of cuts that you can support?
I would be working with the school district to come up with something in it. So after the question and answer portion here, I've had a number of conversations with aldermen and looking at the sheet. We had the school board meeting last night. I have a proposal that I was going to make to the board that increases the funding number for me. So I'm jumping ahead, but they have a May timeframe where they're going to look to make some initial decisions for next year's school, right? So they got to do that obviously before September or before the next school year. So I had a number in mind that I've talked to a number of aldermen about that would address some of the cuts that they've discussed.
Your Honor.
So in the end, will you have a list of cuts that you support?
Yes, I would work with the school district to itemize and bring that forward, because ultimately we pass the number when we affirm a school district budget, and then they are the ones that set the budget. But yes, we would come forward
Well,
with that
they've
list.
set a budget and you came up with a number of 9.5 less. So I'm wondering what you envision taking out. I want to know what the mayor wants to take out.
Yeah, and that's the conversation that we're having tonight is what is the ultimate number going to look like, and what are those ultimate cuts going to look like, or reductions?
Thank you.
Yeah. Alderwoman Fajardo.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, the list that I was just reviewing it on my phone. I got a copy of it earlier. Has that been approved by the school board yet? Or I know everything's in flux, but
Correct.
I mean, how does this put you in a position to be able to
Sure, move forward.
plan?
Right, so we last night had a discussion at the Board of School Committee about potential reductions that we could look at within the district. I will caution, our work looked at not impacting class size to the best of our ability. We're seeing an improvement in student outcome results based on a lot of the variables we put in, but one of the strongest ones I would say is the reduction in class size. As we went through last night, we became very clear that the Board of School Committee had concerns about reduction in force, which would impact class size, the transportation recommendation, and we talked a bit about athletics. Those topics kept coming up in the notes that I was taking when board members were asking questions. Where does it put us today? Every year we look to the budget season. We have to understand that you guys have until June to come up with a final budget. I then will bring whatever this board comes back with back to the Board of School Committee, and we'll have to settle on those final, my recommendations and what the Board of School Committee approves. So we're sitting in a little bit of flux. We are heading into hiring season right now. And I think what you're hearing from some of the staff who came out today is that anxiousness about what's going to go, what's going to stay, and what will the new school year look like. So we're a little bit anxious going into hiring season, knowing that things are still a little bit undetermined.
A follow-up, if I may. So just to recap, I'm hearing that you're prioritizing class sizes. Is there anything else you would say priorities-wise that informed the list that you just went through?
Yeah, I would say all of the recommendations have an impact, and I can't say I recommend any of the reductions that we put forward last night. Any which way you look, you heard our students talk about if there's a change in transportation, it's going to impact attendance. We tend to look at the whole child, attendance, behavior, and curriculum as those three areas of data. We're starting to see all of those data points go in the right direction, so these recommendations are hard to make. Our team looked to minimize impacts in any one area, so we started to spread them across the system. You see a large reduction in force at the district office. We knew when we were looking at class sizes, we did different combinations of numbers to see where that number could sit. Our ability to take out about 8 positions puts 15 positions back in classrooms. So there was a lot of cutting across the system in general, just to try to keep that class size number as low as we could keep it.
Alderman Morgan? Sorry, I'm going back.
Go ahead, Tony, you go. Okay, can we just jump forward to your proposal? Because it's been a long night so far, and I'd like to hear that if that's possible.
Sure, well, are there additional questions? I don't want to shortchange, I mean, this is the opportunity we have
Fair enough,
with
fair
them,
enough.
so, but if we only have a, Alderman.
If I heard you right, we're not going to know what the cuts are before we vote on this budget?
We're not, no, so I'm not asking for us to vote on a budget tonight.
No.
But judging by the conversations that we've had last night on the Board of School Committee and the conversations obviously that we've had here, I recognize that the reductions, would force and necessitate changes on the school district side. Because they're coming up in that May time period where they have to start making decisions, what I wanted to bring to the board tonight was an update on my proposal, but I wanted to give them enough lead time to be able to make better informed decisions before we ultimately pass the budget. Theoretically, we could pass it tonight if we wanted to, but if we wanted more time, we can take more time. But I wanted to give them something more certain, recognize that our budget process goes until June.
Right.
So are you revising your budget?
I'm going to ask for a consensus on an updated number that I think meets some of the concerns that we heard tonight, yes. And that will allow them to make better informed decisions as we go through the budget process. Does that make sense? Yes.
Again, we have a budget that they presented, and if we're going to offer less money than that, we should identify the cuts from that budget that we don't expect to see going forward.
That's what I was going to say.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman Lavasser.
Whatever budget they get, they'll be voting on those cuts at a later time. We cannot tell them how to spend their money.
Right.
They can make, they can say they're cutting sports and buses and all kinds, making the class sizes larger, all the same things they've beat us over the head for the last quarter of a century. But they always come back and they make those votes and decide how they're going to spend it whichever way. We don't tell them what to do. How much does the feds give us in money? I saw a federal number of 23 or 25 million. Did they increase it? Do they ever increase it, or has it been the same for the last?
It's stayed fairly consistent in the $20 million range. We did receive, when we had our ESSER funds, we received $95 million in ESSER funds that was spent over 3 years. But if you look at our budget presentations from prior years, it's about that $20 million number. We do sometimes see increases, but they're not substantial unless we get new grants.
Is there a federal statute, a state statute, or a local ordinance that precludes you from using the full number of 275 as your basis for a budget? You're using local and state, but not federal? I mean, using a 234 number, not a 275, right?
This board has never, has only appropriated the general fund number and the school food and nutrition for as long as I've been here.
I understand that,
So the
but-
federal, the federal dollars would work similar to school food and nutrition. We have the revenues to support it, so it would not impact the tax rate.
Okay.
But this board has never given us an appropriation for the federal spending.
But you have you get an appropriation from the state, right? That's an appropriation. They give us money back?
The
That's
state.
the state money back from
so-
all other towns and cities across the state pay into that, and we're a receiver town.
That is on our general fund. You're talking about
Right.
the SWEPT, the statewide education
Yeah.
property tax.
Yeah.
That's included in our general fund revenues.
Correct, but not feds.
Not the federal revenue.
And
Is that what you mean?
there's a reason for that, or no? Is there a state statute that forces us to add that number in from the state and not just use the local number that is 120 million?
The 120 million that we collected in
That's
taxes
raised
this year
here
includes
from our
the
own
SWEPT,
property taxes,
includes the
correct.
local and the SWEPT,
Right.
which we have
120
to include.
That 120 is including the state?
Yes, it includes the statewide education property tax and also the local taxes.
I'm looking at something here that says 120 from the net school district appropriation and total city county. I'm just looking for the state number. What is that state number?
Okay, so if you look, can you pull the slide back up, Nicole? And look at page 24, please.
I see a total city, a county tax, but I don't see a state number. But you guys
We'll
base
pull
your
it up.
budget on 234. So if the cities is 120, where's the other 134,
So
114 coming
if you
from?
could see the slide here, slide 24, the middle column is fiscal year '25. So if you look towards the bottom of the page,
Yeah.
the state taxes, which are raised locally and retained locally, is 19.5 million, and then the local tax is 100 million, 0.8. So that's the 120 million that we're collecting from the taxpayers in this fiscal year. Next fiscal year '26, that state property tax stays about the same, right, 19.6 million, and in our proposal, we're asking for an additional 5.1 million in local taxes. So in total, it goes from 120.4 million to 125.5 million. So that's the 5.1 million we're requesting, which represents 4.27% increase on the tax side. So those numbers are combined together there to come up with the state and the local tax, because the taxpayers are paying both pieces of that.
You guys came in for a request with 11.5, though.
Yes, because we have additional revenues of 6.4 million. So the 5.1 million in the tax revenue, plus the 6.4 million in our other revenues, which is driven mostly by that adequate education aid, going from 96 million to 106 million, or 100 and, yeah, I think that says 106.
But you don't have to use you're not using the Fed number. Is there a reason why you don't? So your total budget is 273? Is that number I wrote down?
Right, 270.
275, 633?
Right.
That's the budget you have for the school district?
That would be the spending in all of our funds, yes. And again, this board has never appropriated the federal fund piece. If you did appropriate our federal funds, then we would bring in that revenue as the federal fund revenue piece as well. So in the end, there won't be an impact on the tax rate.
Okay, thanks. Complicated.
Alderman Barry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Camille, you had mentioned that this is hiring season, right?
Correct.
Pretty close. In the past, you know, I know we're going to have at least one more budget that we're going to present, maybe more. And sometimes we wait to the last minute, sometimes in June, because we have extra revenue coming in that we can use. So is that going to disrupt your hiring?
So in the past, we've been fortunate in some years to have a budget going into hiring season, an approved budget going into that season. In the years that we don't, what we tend to do is we write anticipated on any posting that we're going to do. We don't take the anticipated language off until we have a full budget approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and then back at the Board of School Committee. That language, however, is a little bit of a detractor to applicants looking to join a school district. When you think about the narrative that we have right now with a reduction in the Board of School Committee tax cap compliant budget request, combined with anticipated language sitting on a posting, Our concern would be that we might see a decrease in staff applications.
So do you already know how many teachers are leaving?
We do. I would say right now that number is incredibly dynamic. Those numbers continue to add up as we go through the spring. We pulled all of our vacancies, retirements, and resignations to find where we could pull positions out through attrition. We're sitting somewhere around 75, 78 right now in that total pool.
And how many have applied for positions?
To our district. I wouldn't have that information by each position right now. That's first done at the building level, and then we would bring nominations forward to the Board of School Committee. I will say that we have seen a steady improvement in teacher applications once we got our contracts to be a little bit more competitive with surrounding districts, and we've been much more successful in hiring paraprofessionals and RBTs for our staffing pool. So we're seeing the workforce move in the right direction.
So are you going to be okay if hopefully we don't have to, but if we go into June?
I would say it could have an impact, and my projection would be we might see less people applying because there's not certainty of a job sitting there. And keep in mind, we're competing with surrounding districts for their vacancies as well. Going out early into the season lets us pick from the pool that's sitting there. When we move into June, July, other districts have already completed their hiring season.
Thank you.
Alderman Vincent. Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Sapienza had his hand up before.
Thank you, Mayor. I have more comments than questions. I have a lot of confidence in the school folks. I think that they certainly will be able to figure this out. Mayor, I want to say you have every right to submit a number and to stick with it. You have every right to delegate your authority. It's not your responsibility to go line by line with it to the school administration. I'm sure they can figure this out. We all know there's a lot of kabuki theater that goes on with these budgets. It happens every year. Let's not kid ourselves. Even the terminology, $9.5 million cut, we all know it's not really a cut. So I just want to emphasize that I have a lot of confidence in the school folks to figure this out. And Mayor, you're well within your rights to submit a figure. I hope you stick to it. And I like that you're delegating the authority like that. Thank you.
Alderman Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Camille, if I may, how many teachers did we lay off last year?
Did we lay off?
Yes.
None.
How many the year before?
None. In my tenure, we've not had to do a layoff.
So if the budget were to stay as is, if the mayor's budget was to come forward as is, there was a lot of good people tonight that were talking about 38 teachers getting laid off. You know, we're pulling these people out of schools. Can you clarify
Sure.
what that means?
Sure, I would love to. What would happen would be movements through attrition. We talked about this last night at the Board of School Committee meeting. Essentially what we do is we look at the options we have available through a vacancy, retirement, or resignation, and then we start to look at class sizes, and we start moving staff across the district. I think what you heard tonight is anxiety about what does that mean, what does that look
Oh,
like.
I know what I heard tonight.
What-
Yeah,
what will
I understand
happen,
that. Yeah.
What will happen, and on our end, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. We got to
Right.
get the right staff with the right credential into the right school. So
So-
that's what you would see.
So it's not layoffs.
We are not looking at layoffs.
So the good people of this city that stood here tonight that were, in my opinion, bamboozled to think that this budget was going to have layoffs is incorrect.
So I've been very clear since I've
No,
been
I'm not
talking
saying it
about
was
this,
you.
that
I'm just
it's
saying
attrition.
there was a
We're looking at
misunderstanding.
attrition. It was
Okay.
important to me to make sure our staff did not face the condition of facing a layoff season.
Mm-hmm.
And we also reduced more at the district level so that we could protect some of the positions back at the school.
And this plays into the 30 students per class with the
Correct.
attrition, correct?
Correct.
That's where this number correlates to. What are we at right now for students in a classroom? And I know it's a very vague question I hit you with, but if you could
Sure.
try to,
Sure. So in general, K to 4, our goal is sitting around 20. We have some schools that are tipping in around 22. What we do is we move them to schools that have vacancies, so we work with the families to keep students in classrooms where we have the lowest numbers. The good news is we're starting to see that being a difficult move as well because we're hitting those 20 marks across a lot of our elementary schools. So the good news is we're moving in the right direction. At our middle and high school, the goal is 25. We're seeing some of our higher level courses being a little bit higher, and we're seeing some of our middle schools tipping over that 25. The goal has been this year, though, for balance, and so when we have placements coming in, we're working with the principals and the district team to look at where can students be placed so we keep that class size low.
A few more questions, if I may, Mr. Mayor. How are we doing with paras?
With paras, pretty amazing. We did a presentation last night. I'll be happy to share that over with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We're at 301, I believe our number was last night. 30 of them are contract service providers right now, and I believe we hired 120 this school year. So we've had some pretty tremendous success. We put a hard recruitment push into that pool to make sure we had those resources.
Do you attribute that to working with local colleges and whatnot to try to get some of those? Because there are programs out there.
There are. We have a number of pipelines within the district. I attribute it to the full approach that the team took. It was recruitment. It was looking at retention. It was how do we get pipelines for people to come in to serve in those roles.
That's good news. If I may, the transit, can you explain to us what in-house home-to-school model, what exactly does that mean? Because there was a lot of good folks that were saying we're going to make them walk 2 miles.
Sure.
And I understand that, but I'm trying to understand where that plays in and where charging students to get on a bus comes into play.
Sure. So legally, we have to provide busing at the 2-mile mark. Our policy shows it at the 1.4 mile mark. We also are not required to provide busing for high school students. A number of years ago, in the COVID times, the board moved back to not charging high school students, and we've held to that 1.4 mile radius. When we talked about the savings that could be had, it seems like a smaller number at 342. However, again, we're looking for teacher positions to save into the classrooms to keep that class size number down. So the 342 came as a result of moving from the 1.4 to a 2-mile radius, charging at the high school level to ride a bus, and reducing the tap-on, tap-off system. I'll also say I undercut that recommendation as I said it last night by saying getting to 2 miles would be about walking from here to Elliott Hospital, and we know that it can take 40 to 50 minutes to walk that length.
I get it. My father used to work 50 miles. He said he walked 50 miles backwards up. I get it. So we're charging them now, correct?
We're not.
So what are we looking at charging students if this is the proposed plan?
So when we ran a model, we were looking at $10. The net would be about $70,000.
$10 per student?
Per week.
Per week? How do you feel about that?
I don't feel good about any of these reductions.
What would make
that
us
I made.
even think to go that route?
To protect classroom teacher positions. So as we kept looking at models, trying to figure out where that classroom number was going to fall, that's why we paused the athletics expansion. Small number, $90,000, but it's another teacher. And so as we kept moving teachers into that pool, we could get our class sizes to start to fall down.
2 more real quick.
Please.
Sorry. The school bus program that we took over, was this a benefit right now? Is this successful right now,
Yes.
in your opinion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Millions of dollars we've saved.
And then the last thing I had was regarding the special education. How does this work with this budget? How are we affecting the special, because I know a lot of that is outsourced.
So
So
not
how
a
does
lot
that
of it's
affect it?
outsourced. What we do bring in with the contract service providers, when we
That's what I
can't
meant.
find a PT, OT, speech, paraprofessional, we have some special ed teachers in some of our specialized programs, and school psychologists. Those are the areas that we're seeing contract service providers come in. What our goal is right now, understanding that to hire a contract service provider, it's 2 to 3 times more expensive than a generally funded position. Our HR team and school teams will be working actively to recruit in so that we can continue to see that contract service number drop. Keep in mind, we did the same approach with our paraprofessionals. It took us a bit of time to really actualize the number we wanted to get to, but we stayed consistent with pushing the recruitment.
Okay. I do wish a lot of the people that spoke tonight did go to the school board and speak as well, because it was not the mayor that made these cuts or makes these elections of cuts. It was the school, whoever made them.
So they're not
It's
cuts.
unfortunate that we took the brunt of that blow when we're not the ones dictating what the cuts are. I understand what you're saying, but I do think that it's important to understand that we can work with you on this, and it's just a fact that I just want people to know the mayor did not come out and say, we're going to cut buses, we're going to do this. It's a budget, and it's a work in progress. So people need to understand that, and that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Can I just say one quick thing on that? We've never categorized it as a cut. What we have said is we had to get from the Board of School Committee tax compliant
Dr.
budget
Camille,
that we put forward to
I understand
here.
what you're going to say, but the people that were here tonight, they didn't understand that, and I don't think it was portrayed to them correctly. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Alderman Barry.
I think what the people understood that came here tonight was that we're the next step. And they're reaching out to us to try to bring it closer to the 9.5
Close the
million.
gap.
Thank you.
Chairman Lavasser.
I love the irony of millions of dollars in savings on buses, but you're going to charge high school students $10 a week to ride the buses.
Yeah, I will say it again, I don't think any
Bad
of the
messaging,
reductions I
don't you
made
think?
make any logical sense for our district. We presented a budget to our Board of School Committee that we felt was in the best interest of the district.
I don't, I get why you like, this has been going on for budget after budget, but talk about bad messaging from the school district, going after the lowest hanging fruit, charging people to ride a bus, going after sports, making it sound like we're laying off teachers. That I was told, and I watched the meeting last night, you're paying them early retirement, and they have an option to be bought out if they want to go, is what I saw in the meeting
Correct.
last night. They're not getting fired. Somebody came here and said, these people are all being fired. You should see yourself. Grow up, lady in the back.
All right, hey,
Give me a
let's-
break.
let's
It's
move
just
it on
so
the rails.
obnoxious, some of these people.
We got two more.
Anyway,
and
no,
then-
I just want to say, it's just bad messaging. I mean, when you have a budget of $234 million, you guys can't make anything managerial, nothing administrative, nothing in the other subgroups that you have. You go after kids, buses, paying $10. You go after sports, you rally these people up there. They come in here, they don't even know what they're saying.
I disagree with you wholly on that.
It's all
We went
foolishness.
across the system, and we made reductions across the system. What we
Where
tried to
did you
do was
make
focus
any-
on
where
class
did you make-
sizes.
Where did you make cuts at the top levels of administration?
7.8%, 8 positions came out of our district team. That is the biggest
7.8% of
cut.
your budget?
7.8% of our district team was cut. The next
How much
cut
of
was
that
at our
district team are
schools,
we
which
talking
was
about?
2.1% at each building.
You don't want to answer the question. What does 7.8% represent?
8 positions.
8 positions out of, and that's a good, how many teachers did you have in the 25 budget?
We've been hovering right around 1,200,
And what do you have in this budget?
right around 1,200.
So the same.
Correct.
Now, the reason
rolled
why
them
the
forward.
cost has gone up is because there was a 9% increase last year, or in your first year of your contract.
For the negotiated
Teachers,
contracts?
yeah.
Across the board, all of our contracts had increases to bring them level, just like you did on this side with the salary study.
We haven't voted for that yet. That hasn't been
You've been looking at the salaries. We did the same thing
We're not
and
arguing
moved them
about our
forward.
side. I'm just making the point, and I don't know why this has to get argumentative. I understand why you have such a massive increase. It's because you had a massive increase in salaries. I mean, the number that I just saw, I think it was something like $10.4 million increase in line item for salaries. And then a couple million more for FICA, and then a couple million more in retirements, because that gone all the way up. I mean, it's a huge money increase. It's not because of, you know, I know fuel went up, and I know the utilities went up, but the massive increase was in salaries.
Correct,
Right, and you have to pay for them.
correct.
And that's all. And I'm just saying, and I don't mean to be mean, but when you come in and you have kids coming in here saying they got to pay $10 for a bus ride and you're cutting sports, it's just
So we didn't
bad
cut sports.
messaging.
We paused on the expansion of sports. What we built out this year with the additional adequacy that we got was the foundation to increase middle school baseball, softball, wrestling, and unified PE. That is a build-out that we look to pause, which would save us one classroom teacher for the coming year.
I'm not trying to be critical of look, you have what you have. You got a big increase, you have a big increase in salaries, you have a big increase in retirement. I mean, I get it. It's not a big deal. I mean, I understand you got a great contract. The teachers, like my understanding, were very satisfied and happy with their increases. That's not a bad thing. You had the votes, you got the money in, you got to pay for it. But I'm just saying, when you just come in here with this, it's just a bad look. I mean, it makes people not really trust the school district when you're coming in for $10 bus rides. That's all I'm saying, okay?
Alderman Long?
This doesn't look good.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I want to say that the school district is producing leaders. The people that I heard tonight, the students that came and spoke, the school district is producing leaders in this city. No doubt about that. That was clear tonight. District cut, excuse me, I get the floor. I get the floor. The district cuts, I mean, we're talking about low-hanging fruit. I understand you have to do those cuts.
Correct.
Maybe we could come up with some suggestions. If you don't like what they're coming up with, maybe we could come up with some suggestions, you know? So out of the 38, positions, attrition, how many of those affect class sizes?
We would have, at the elementary level, we would have about 6 schools that would see the most impact for class sizes going up. Of the teachers, I wouldn't be able to give you that number just yet because we're still doing the movement, the projected movements behind the scenes. Each day, as we get new retirements or resignations that come in, it changes just a little bit as we keep shuffling where staff could fall. So I would have a better sense of what that actual number per teacher would look like in probably about 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And anybody who came here to speak, none of them were bamboozled. They're working there. So if I'm working somewhere and I see these cuts going on, I'm concerned about my job. They didn't get bamboozled at all. They came here and they gave their reality. That's their reality.
Okay, Alderman O'Neill, and then Alderman Cantor.
Thank you. I will say, I went on your website, I cannot find this,
The doc?
the
So it should
document.
be under, Angela posted it last night.
Well, I couldn't find it.
Okay.
So I'm a little disappointed we're having a discussion without the document in front of us. So,
What did you say, Trish?
I heard some,
Under the full board agenda.
on our agenda?
On the school district's webpage, it's on the full board agenda.
It means I gotta go look for the school board agenda then. All right, so,
We can send it.
it's all right, but should have been,
Mayor, do you want this copy?
Yeah.
should have been a package for all the aldermen.
So we
It would-
didn't put a package together coming into today. What we did is in February, when we had the Board of School Committee approved package, that's what came over. In the meeting last night is when we realized we were on the agenda for tonight. So my apologies that we didn't do a package for this one. We had everything posted last night.
Okay. It wasn't right where I thought it might be, so. I heard some great things tonight about graduation rate up, attendance is up, behavioral issues are down. And I think Alderman Long hit on something that was, we see the future leaders of our city were here tonight. Wow, are they powerful, those high school, even younger than high school, I think some of them. Powerful, powerful. I'd love to see the background on this, on the extending the busing to 2 miles. Because those buses are gonna be out there anyways. I'm no
So-
expert in busing, but I've seen enough of it go
Yep,
on.
it would reduce some of our roster loads, and it could compress some of our routes.
All right,
We're more than
I
happy to
took,
share
and
it.
it was the students that brought up this issue, it's gonna affect attendance. So I hope it's something,
We agree.
I hope it's something you can put to rest as soon as possible. It just, I can't get it, thinking about it, and I can't see how you get the, what was the savings, 340?
342.
Yeah, I can't
So
see you getting there, because,
What that would equate to is when we take 342 out of that bucket, I need to go find about 3 to 4 teachers to pull out and add to the 38. We went through every single bucket that we could find, and we kept playing to get the number as low as we could for class size. So we would move a couple teachers this way, move a couple teachers that way, and see what the impact would look on class sizes.
I just, if somebody can send me
Sure,
background on how the 2 miles
sure.
is going to make a big difference. You're not reducing the number of buses, you're not reducing the number of drivers.
Sure, I'll have the transportation team
Fuel
pull it
is
together.
fuel. I just don't see it. But I do want to end on a positive note. Graduation's up, attendance is up, behavioral issues are down, and that's a credit to everyone in our school district.
Yep, the district's moving in the right direction.
So, and I think Alderman Long was right on. We saw our future leaders here tonight. So, thank you.
Alderman Cantor.
Thank you. Just wondering, oh, no, thank you. I was just wondering about the $6.5 million extra last year.
The additional adequacy?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the adequacy from last year?
What exactly is the question?
Is, what did you use it for, the $6.5 million?
I don't have the list. We brought that back, we brought that before all of you last year. Some of it was one-time spending for the build-out of athletics.
Yeah, then we had, we put, I think it was additional $3 million into our professional services line for our student services. Special education costs were going up. And then $2 million into, I think it was transportation.
And then
specialized transportation.
And athletics.
Yep.
Any positions created?
No, we were looking at building more foundational with those funds last year.
All right. The other thing is, I'm definitely with Alderman Lavasser about if you're saving millions of dollars, how could you be charging the high school students? That absolutely is insane.
Sure.
It makes no sense to me. The other question is, have you looked at your DEI policies, and do they align with the current presidential executive orders?
So we have, and we've gone through all of our policies, and right now we are consistent with the language.
Consistent with the language, but how about the position and what they're actually
We
doing?
don't have that position right now.
Excuse me?
We do not have that position right now. We do not have a DEI, chief of DEI.
Oh, there's no one?
Correct.
And there's no policies?
We have all of our policies, which we are continuing to go through and making sure they are consistent with language that's come in. I'll give one example. Title IX had a major renovation that needed to go back to the 2017 rules. The team's been working to make sure we have that ready to go.
Okay, because my concern is the federal funding impact it would do to the schools, and that would not be good for us.
Correct. We're working with our legal team on that at this point in time.
Okay, and the other thing is, you do have the transgender and gender nonconforming policy. I have it right before me. Has that changed?
So that's with our legal team right now.
Okay. And another question is, how much money have you spent on the actual lawsuit with Jane Doe versus Manchester School District?
I don't have that information with me. If that's a piece of information that's not pertinent to what we're doing tonight, we can certainly get that to the board.
It is part of your budget, right?
We would have to suss it out through our legal bills and find that exact line amount. We don't have that with us this evening.
Okay, I think it's really important how much you're spending on legal fees when it's against parental rights. People need to know.
So,
Thank you.
so we have our next Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting is May 6th. What would be helpful for you as you are going through the hiring process for the next school year? Obviously, the earlier the better that you have a number from this board, but is it something that can wait until May 6th to get greater clarity from the Board of Mayor and Alderman?
I would say the risk we run is applicants not signing in, and the longer we push that out, the more we roll into hiring season. So I would say the more clarity we can have as soon as possible would be what I would advocate for.
So to Alderman Sapienza's point, one of the things that I've been looking at over the last couple days was the line by line that they had presented to the Board of School Committee last night and addressing some of the concerns that we heard this evening. The number that I had in my mind obviously I'm not on the aldermanic side, so I don't introduce a budget at this point. This is all in your guys' hand, but the number that we had discussed, or that I had talked about or thought about, was the 1.25 million would ensure that all of the, or that there would be no reductions at the elementary school level, so class sizes wouldn't increase at the elementary school level. It would also include the transportation number of 342,000, and it would allow for the expansion of sports. I think those were three of the things that we heard this evening that were the most concerning, were the class sizes and sports and transportation. So as the board wants to move forward, that would be my suggestion or recommendation.
Question. Are you saying the May 6th deadline, or because you want to be able to hire, or have people apply for jobs?
Correct. The quicker we can get that anticipated language off and we can calm the concerns that there's any type of movements going on through layoff as people have now reduced attrition to, would be better for us.
Well, if you're going to be laying people off through attrition, why would you be concerned about hiring people?
We're not laying people off. My concern is they're hearing the word
buying them
they're hearing the word attrition and attributing that to a layoff. So the sooner I can get that to calm down, the better for the district.
So you're calming it down tonight by saying that the school district is hiring?
We're looking to continue to hire for the coming school year. The sooner we can get the word anticipated off of our postings would be better for us.
And what number gets you to anticipated?
Once the budget's locked in.
The number that you requested?
Once our budget is locked in is when historically we take that word anticipated off any posting that we put out there. Up until that time, we hold with anticipated if we don't have a budget approved.
If you get the mayor's number, the anticipated will be taken off?
No, it wouldn't be, because even with that, what that does is it essentially brings back, as you were just saying, the transportation, if we did it at the 342, athletics expansion, and then the balance would bring us around 12 teachers back into the district. We still would have some that we would have to remove through attrition. We'd have to reduce some of those roles.
So what number do you need from us to get you to get rid of that
A budget. I would need the budget
Any
approved.
budget,
Yep, I would
whatever
need the
number we
budget
give you.
approved. Yep. And that then locks us into what we are either reducing or we're moving forward. We would keep it anticipated until such point.
I just asked you if you got the mayor's budget, would you be able to take that off?
You mean if my
With all
budget
the
were to pass?
reductions.
Yeah, if his budget was to pass, then you would be able to,
With the 9.5.
you'd be able to hire more people.
With the 9.5 reduction?
Yeah, his budget, whatever is,
Correct. If that's what was passed, we would have to go in and do all of the moves through attrition, and then we can continue to go forward.
to hire people.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate that, thanks.
Yeah, Alderman.
Kind of a follow-up. Thank you, Mayor. We hear about deadlines and whatnot, right? The mayor submitted a budget last time we met publicly, right? That's a valid budget right there. That gives you some, possibly there's going to be a different budget, but quite possibly that's going to be the budget, correct?
Theoretically, if the alderman, if you all just simply acted on that and didn't make
Okay.
any changes, yeah, theoretically, that could be the budget. Yep.
Terrific. So we have hard and fast numbers to go with as we speak. You know, because I'm hearing terms like deadline. We have your budget.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Terrific, thank you.
Yeah, Alderman Sapienza, Alderman O'Neill.
You just mentioned, yeah, you have your budget, that's true. And that could become a budget. And speaking of kabuki dances, we had a real good one last year at budget time, and we almost ended up with a default budget. So you're right,
Yeah, let's-
we may very well be right there, the way it's going, the way I'm watching this meeting. But there's nothing preventing the mayor or any alderman from putting a budget on the table. Just because you did a budget a few weeks ago doesn't mean you can't do another one.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's in
Right.
the alderman's hands now. Very
Well-
theoretically, anybody could come forward with a future budget, yeah.
But when you say it's in the alderman's hand, that doesn't mean that your hands are tied. You can
Oh.
certainly put another budget
Well,
together.
that's why I just made that recommendation. If we're going to consider additional numbers, the number that I had talked about based on the sheet from last night was 1.25, which would ensure the elementary school class sizes don't increase, transportation is taken care of, as is athletics. Yeah, but I'm not the one that's allowed to bring forth another budget. That would come from you guys. But that would be my recommendation if there were to be changes made. Yeah,
I don't
Alderman-
think there's anything stopping you from bringing a budget forward.
Well, the charter. I'm not allowed to. I've done mine.
I got a quick question, Mayor.
Alderman O'Neill had,
I'll
okay.
yield to
Real quick, Mayor, thank you. Anyone got a budget to submit tonight?
Well, it would have to lay over anyway, so it's,
Oh, anyway, okay, but anybody got any figures to put forth?
yeah.
I'm good with the
Okay.
mayor's.
You're
So
on
I
right.
think the plan going forward, I think, is for us as a Board of Mayor and Aldermen to continue to work together. We have the information from you all. I appreciate you guys being receptive to answering questions, and we'll get that document over to you from last night.
I was just yielding so he could ask a question. I still had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, having been here a little bit, mayors have brought in, and even though it's not their budget, mayors have brought in and said, I'd recommend this based
Yeah.
on this information.
Yep,
you
and
know,
I
so-
did, and
so
I
this-
totally agree, and that's why I said in crunching
Okay.
the numbers, that the number that I would recommend would be the 1.25 that I just suggested.
Okay.
So I'm more than happy, obviously, I want to continue working with everybody here.
And Dr. Camillo, you understand, generally, things get better for us with time.
We do.
We get better revenue numbers, and if we jump quick and give us, it may not be the budget we could eventually get to. So I understand hiring and all that, but I'll speak for myself. I want to be able to get you the best budget possible.
Yep, I was answering the question that the mayor asked me as far as timing, so,
Okay, so time helps us.
yep, I understand.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Alderman Barry had one last,
No, you guys are all set.
oh, okay, I apologize. Go ahead, Alderman,
Last year, you presented your budget, right?
correct.
And after you presented it, I know myself, Pat Long, and Alderman Burkish worked on the budget, and you worked with us on it.
Yep,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.